E honore he gloria he maunarong e runga ta whenua whakaora pai ki ngā tangata katoa. E tō mātou e te rangi manaki e mātou katoa e tā mai e tēnei hui e pā. A gloria ki te ngua tapu. Āmene.
Kia ora, Trevor. Well, welcome along to this informational talk. My name is Bryce Lyle and I'm one of the lawyers working for Upokorehe. And I'll be joined by Robin Zwan, who will be doing most of the talking today, who's another of the lawyers undertaking work for Upokorehe. The plan today is to give a quick talk about the Whakatohea settlement and the issues that Upokorehe see as having arisen there. We'll talk about some of the litigation that's been going on, particularly in the Waitangi Tribunal. So there's been 2 hearings urgently held in the Waitangi Tribunal concerning the Whakatohea settlement, and Robin is well placed to give an update on both of those. I'll then talk about some of the action that's being undertaken at the moment. In particular, there's a petition that Upokorehe are putting together to seek to withdraw from the Whakatohea settlement. So I can say why, I can say where we're up to, and then I'll give a quick rundown on the Crown's plans and the Whakatohea Pre-Settlement Trust plans to conclude the settlement, and a brief bit at the end about the Waitangi Tribunal and its inquiry into the historical claims of Upokorehe and how the settlement might impact on that. At the beginning, I should stress that none of what you'll hear today is to be construed as legal advice. There's an old saying that you don't get legal advice from the internet. So if you do have any questions, we're happy to answer them, but it is really an informational session that's not to be construed as us as lawyers giving you advice. And the other point that I wanted to note was that as lawyers, what you'll hear today isn't our view. We're not trying to put a spin on things because that's not our job. So what we're reporting back on is the views that we have heard from Upokorehe and the legal avenues and pathways that are available to the group. So I'm not here to advocate one way or another. It's for Upokorehe to make that decision for yourselves. And Robin and I are here to provide you information to make that choice with. So without further ado, I'd like to pass over to Robin Zwan, and she will work through the topics that I've just listed. Kia ora, Robin.
Kia ora, Bryce. Thanks for that introduction. So as Bryce indicated, there are 2 main topics that I'll be talking to you about, which are the current settlement that's proposed by the Whakatohea Pre-Settlement Trust and the issues that arise from that. And then the second issue that I'll be discussing is the different urgencies that are currently in front of the tribunal, as well as the previous urgency. So the settlement that has been proposed by the Whakatohea Pre-Settlement Trust basically works in a way to settle all of Whakatohea's historical treaty breaches with the Crown, and that includes all of Upokorehe's treaty breaches with the Crown, and as it's currently drafted will include the rohi of Upokorehe as well as the rohi of Whakatohea and any Crown lands included in that. One of the major issues with the settlement as it's currently drafted is that it doesn't allow for the Waitangi Tribunal to continue its historical inquiry into the historical breaches before settling. And Bryce will touch on this later, but I just wanted to indicate that now. The other major issue is that it will be settling all of Upokorehe's issues as part of Whakatohea, and it only settles them as one hapu of Whakatohea, not an iwi in its own right. And so the major issue from Upokorehe's point of view is that it's not going to be recognised as an iwi and not have their own historical settlement if this Whakatohea settlement is to progress. Obviously, that creates issues in terms of Upokorehe identity and also subsumes them into another iwi and gives all of their lands over to a different group. There are many other issues with it that I could spend many hours talking about, but for today's informational hui, I think that's the main things that we need to touch on, as well as the structure of the pre-settlement trust doesn't give Upokorehe any voice to manage or have a say realistically over their lands or what happens within the settlement, because it gives them 2 seats on a board that they will never be the majority on. So what the tribunal has looked at is, back in 2016, Upokorehe lodged a claim in the tribunal arguing that the settlement that was proposed at that stage, which has remained rather similar to what is now going to be put through Parliament if it is to continue. And Upokorehe opposed it because it wasn't going to allow them to have their historical inquiry held by the Waitangi Tribunal prior to the settlement being put through, and it would also subsume them into whakatōhea. In that, the Waitangi Tribunal found a number of breaches in terms of how the Crown had dealt with whakatōhea and Upokorehe in the way that had progressed the settlement. And included in that is the issue of the Upokorehe identity, which they didn't make a decision on, but said it was something that needed to be discussed at a future date. The current urgency hearing, which has been listed as a priority hearing within the larger historical inquiry into the Northeastern Bay of Plenty historical breaches, has been focused on whether or not the changes that have occurred following the release of the 2016 urgency inquiry and the report that was released from that, and whether or not the Crown has done what the tribunal asked them to, and specifically around the withdrawal mechanism within the deed of mandate, because all that's happened is the deed of mandate has been amended so that it's now 5% of all adult members of whakatōhea, that you no longer need to be registered with the Whakatōhea Māori Trust Board. One of the issues with this that's arisen in the priority hearing is that there is no definition as to who the adult members of the whakatōhea are, and whether or not members of Upokorehe who whakapapa not to whakatōhea but will have their claims settled by whakatōhea will be included in this vote. One of the other issues that's arisen is the jurisdictional issues that Bryce will be touching on in a minute, and those are the 2 major issues that the tribunal has been inquiring into over the last couple of months. It was heard in a very short hearing space and quite defined matters to make sure that there was time to release the report prior to any ratification of a potential deed going through Parliament. The other thing that should be important for Upokorehe members to know is that with this change in the definition, it's raised a lot of uncertainty about how many signatures will be required for the withdrawal mechanism, and that is something that we'll need to discuss at a later date. I don't think there's anything else that I need to touch on at this stage, apart from reminding people that if the settlement goes through, then the identity of Upokorehe will be permanently settled with whakatōhea and will not have the opportunity to have their own separate historical settlement with the Crown. Upokorehe will still be able to have the historical inquiry with the Waitangi Tribunal, but their powers will be restricted in terms of how many recommendations they can make in the release of their report when that comes about. And on that note, I will pass it over to Bryce to talk about more of the jurisdictional issues and where the petition has gotten to.
Thank you, Robin. There's a lot to unpack there, I know. Again, if you do have questions, please put them in the comments or put them up on Facebook, and Kahu Kori or others will feed them to us to answer in the future. So the first topic that I would like to cover off is, as Robin said, the withdrawal mechanism. Now, what this means is that when the Crown made the decision to work with the Whakatōhea Trust Board and now the Whakatōhea Pre-Settlement Claims Trust, one of the ways that the claimant community was given to keep that body accountable to them was this withdrawal mechanism. So part of the claimant community, or the entire claimant community, if they're dissatisfied with the settling group, we're meant to be able to engage with this withdrawal method. The idea being that the Crown would then cease to work with the pre-settlement trust for that particular group. So it's called withdrawing the mandate in Crown speak. The process there was that written notice of the intention to withdraw needs to be provided to the pre-settlement claims trust, and it needs to specify which part of the claimant community is seeking to withdraw. So in this case, it's Upokorehe. It needs to identify clearly the concerns which have led you to that step. And the hard part, as far as we're concerned, is that it needs to be signed by at least 5% of the adult members of whakatōhea. We don't have, as Robin said, a clear steer on exactly what that 5% number is. We think that it's going to be somewhere in the region of 700 people, or maybe a few more. So certainly not insurmountable. An attempt was made to use this withdrawal method a few years ago, and they failed because prior to this, it was 5% of the adult registered members of whakatōhea, which meant that it was a higher bar. Now that's been changed, so Upokorehe have decided to try again. It's not known if other groups are trying their own petitions at the moment, but after the last Waitangi Tribunal hearing, our clients told us that it was incumbent on them to at least try to use this withdrawal process, because they're seeking to use all avenues possible to withdraw from the settlement. So over the last 2 weeks, a petition has been online. It's www.upokorehe.iwi.nz/petition. And the reason that Upokorehe have given as wanting to withdraw is as follows. It says the Crown and Te Whakatōhea Pre-Settlement Claims Trust plan to initial their deed of settlement in November 2021. And I should add that yesterday we received word from the Crown that that timeframe is going to be pushed back slightly. So it's now looking like that initialing might happen in the early part of 2023. So there may be a couple of months there difference. But as those who are organising the petition say, the voice of Te Upokorehe Iwi is not going to be heard in this settlement. They say their whakapapa and their claims are distinct from Te Whakatōhea. So they're objecting to being swept into the settlement as a part of Te Whakatōhea. They say that they want to stand on their own mana and have the Crown engage directly with them to settle their claims rather than with a different group. So they're asking all of those who whakapapa to Te Upokorehe to join the petition and show the Crown that Te Whakatōhea does not have their permission or agreement to act for Te Upokorehe. Now, when you go to that website, you'll see there's a fairly easy form to fill in, hopefully. It's just first name, last name, email address, birth date. You'll be asked about your marae and your tipuna. Those are just check boxes. If you're not sure, then you can leave those blank, and Kaumatua Kuia will contact you to work that out. And if it's more than one, please go right ahead and click more than one. There's a box where you can put a comment in, what you would like to say to the Crown, and then you can use your mouse as a pen to sign and submit the petition. So it's as easy as that. We don't know that this petition will be successful. To a large degree, we're depending on what that 5% exactly means. And even if it is submitted and everything goes as the withdrawal element of that deed of mandate sets out, it withdraws this group from the settlement, but not the Y claims that you've all filed. So there is still a big issue there legally with that withdrawal method. And that's part of what the Waitangi Tribunal are looking at the moment. So I'm expecting and hoping that there will be a positive outcome there. I should say that the petition can be signed by anyone who whakapapas to Upokorehe. You don't need to be on the whakatohea register. So if you're over 18 and you're Upokorehe, you can go along and sign up. And you can be encouraging your whanau to do the same. Now, I've said a little bit about the Crown plan from here. So that's the initialing in 2022 and a ratification process to follow. So that'll be a vote. And that will be all whakatohea members who are over 18 will be able to vote on a yes or a no, essentially, to take the settlement or not. We've seen historically with other settlements that the Crown is quite willing to accept very low percentages of turnout, so they are likely to accept, for instance, 30% or something around their turnout, as long as they see the numbers stacking up. So there's no magical number that will be a no, there's no magical number that will be a yes. It's very much at the discretion of the Crown. That's probably where things stand at the moment. I can say that on current track, the Upokorehe Treaty Claims Trust are very happy with the numbers that they're seeing, and we're getting up near the numbers that will be required to send that letter away. Once we send that letter to the Pre-Settlement Claims Trust, it's up to them to begin the process from there. So there'll be a dispute resolution process and some further hui. And it's the intention of Te Upokorehe to continue to supply further names once that letter is sent. So even if you're watching this after that letter has gone in, if you still want to support, you can go to that website and sign the petition, and your name will be added to the list of people who have given their voice to objecting against the settlement. Unless, Robin, you wanted to add anything about the settlement kaupapa, I will move to the Waitangi Tribunal's historical inquiry. So I didn't want this brief hui to be all doom and gloom. So I thought a bit of positivity to round it out, and that might be the Waitangi Tribunal's historical inquiry. Upokorehe have several claims within that inquiry, and it's going to be the first time that your historical claims, your grievances against the Crown have been focused on with a laser focus rather than just as a part of a different process by a panel like the Tribunal. You will have your own research completed, and that includes a tribal landscape report, which is going to be only for Upokorehe, not for the wider whakatohea. So this is a chance for you as an iwi, as a people, to have your say in front of the Tribunal and have your claims heard. The settlement may have an impact on the timing of that, because as Robin said, the way that they've set it up is that that Tribunal won't be able to hear your historical claims, possibly while any settlement legislation is before Parliament. Then it'll be all go in the Tribunal. If the settlement does go through, one of the parts that people are objecting to is that the Tribunal will be able to hear your claims, will be able to make findings on your claims, but on historical elements won't be able to make recommendations on those claims. And that's a part that we're hoping is also changed or there'll be a good recommendation from the Tribunal to change that, because legally speaking, I don't think it makes sense. And we've seen historical precedent in other settlements where the tribunal's been allowed to make those sorts of recommendations by the Crown. So I don't see that there's any rationale legally in taking that ability from the tribunal. So that tribunal process is likely to kick into gear next year after a lot of preparatory work. I think part of the only thing that's been holding it back at the moment has been this latest series of lockdowns. But it's my firm hope that we'll see some real progress coming in the next year, and Upokorehe can begin that process of having your claims heard, giving your evidence and saying your piece to the Crown. So in the meantime, the focus is on the petition. It's on working out other legal avenues to make sure that Upokorehe get the settlement that you want, the settlement that you deserve, rather than one that you feel that you're being included in against your wishes. And that is all that I had to say today. I don't know, Robin, if you'd like to wrap up.
No, I think you've covered everything else. Just if you're still watching this, a reminder of the website, Bryce, because I can't remember it off the top of my head, just in case people need to get there.
This will also be on the Facebook page, but it's www.upokorehe.iwi.nz/petition. There's also a register there, and you'll be guided to that after you've signed the petition. And that's a way that the Upokorehe Treaty Claims Trust can stay in touch with you after this process, if you so wish. But you don't need to fill that in to sign the petition, but by all means do if you want to be kept in touch with.
Ai hono e gloria e manarongi runga te whenua whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. E tō mātou e tarangi manaki e mātou katoa e noho ki tō tātou kainamaha. A gloria ki te ngua tapu. Amene.